Good morning, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of Today's Task. For today's task, we are going to be putting heated hand grips on my four-wheeler. We're also going to be putting a heated thumb warmer on as well. So let's get started with today's project. There are a bunch of different companies that make hand warmers. I chose to use the Polaris brand themselves because they line up with the wiring harness the quickest and easiest. I will link these in the description down below if you're looking for them for your machine. So a lot of the videos that I've looked at on how to remove these, a lot of guys just cut them right off. I'm going to show you a trick right now that'll save you a lot of work, because if you cut them off, you have to buy new ones. That's added expense, and it doesn't save you any time or make it any easier. In order to work with your handlebar grip, I recommend loosening all of your gauges and everything like that, kind of sliding them out of the way. You're not gonna fully remove them, but you just wanna get you some wiggle room to work around. Another helpful tip is cutting all of the wire ties so that the cables can move freely. Now that you've got some wiggle room to pull these off, I like to take an awl and score just along it so that I know exactly where I have to have those hand warmers going to. All right, here's the trick that I was going to tell you about. You need an air compressor, and you need one of these small rubber hoses that you use for like kind of blowing down your shop or whatever. This is the best one I found. Simply grab the handlebar, kind of pry up on it a little bit, and start forcing air in. This will go back on just as easy, and I didn't have to cut it, and I get to keep it. The next step is to remove this cover. Now remove the cover. When you remove this cover plate, undo all of your gauges up here so that you have full access underneath. The last piece to remove is this small cover as well. Once you get into this plate, you'll have access to this wire, an orange and white wire, which is a key-on power. When you use a key-on power, it means that your hand warmers and thumb grip will only get power when the machine is turned on. If it's off, they'll shut off with it as well, so that way you don't drain your battery. Since the next step is going to be putting our hand warmers to the handlebar itself, I really want to make sure that this is clean. Any kind of a cleaner will work, like brake cleaner, carb cleaner, anything that's really going to cut down any grease that could possibly be left on here. You need to take a moment and figure out how and where you want this wiring to go behind there, because once this bonds to this, you're not moving it, and you really don't want to have to try and refigure that out. I know my thumb throttle is going to go right here, so I kind of want to make sure this is out of the way. So I'm actually going to put it up just a little bit higher than I think most people would think to, but that way it makes sure this wire doesn't get in the way of my thumb throttle in any way. Simply unpill, line up, here, and slowly work it around the whole way as you go. Even if you feel like there's a gap in between the pieces, don't worry about it. These heat up so powerfully that they're going to heat this bar, and your hands will be plenty warm. You're not going to be worried about any cold spots on this, I promise. A little tip is I want to push this black cover for the wires all the way up to this handlebar, and then take electrical tape and reinforce. Next thing I want to do is put the handlebar grip back on. For this, the trick is WD-40. Just a little bit, and a little, and it'll slide. Right in place. Make sure it's good and tight all the way on there. So again, a little WD-40 in the handlebar, a little bit on, not much, and work it on. And before it tightens up too much, rotate it around to where you want the grip to be. All right, the next step is prepping our thumb throttle. Again, I want to clean it. The thumb throttle warmer, it looks a little bit different. It's a little more robust, I think, but it does come with the same sticky background that you just want to put on. And I'd recommend putting it as close to this edge as you can. In the kit comes a tube of heat shrink. Slide on as far as it will go. Then with a heat shrink gun or a blow dryer or even a torch if you're really, really careful, shrink it. Then you can simply cut off this remainder. Now with everything fitted and in place, start taking your wires and bringing them back to the one main area which will be under your console and zip tie them in place. The four-wheeler comes with predetermined power wires, which is this orange and white one. There are actually two of them. Either one will work. Simply connect your red main power wire in. Make sure it's a good and snug fit, and then feed up through your console. And just leave everything loose for right now. I want to undo one of these bolts and bolt the ground wire into this. That way it's grounded to my frame, and then I can close up all of this area. I realize this looks a little bit like a rat's nest, but it's pretty simple. You have only 3 different wires that you're going to be using. You have a hot that comes in and feeds everything. You have a ground that everything is grounded to. Then everything else has a high and a low and a ground. And you'll connect those to the switches accordingly. Both the handlebar grips and the thumb warmer come with their own toggle switch. I can, if I wanted to, piggyback them and make them work off of one, so it's just high and low. But I kind of get the feeling that if I have the option of making this one hotter when these don't need to be as hot, I might just keep that option available. And there are 4 locations that you can mount both of these switches, either here and here or here and here. There are actual cutouts designated for them that you can follow that are meant to fit these factory switches. I'm going to put both of my switches right here. And now our buttons are mounted. So we have our power that's going to feed both of these switches. I actually have to piggyback it with the wire that came with a thumb throttle. And it actually is built in to be piggybacked all by itself. So you simply connect those two together. Good and tight. And now that can go into the switch for one of them, and this will go into the other switch. The 2 grounds that are connected are your handlebar grips. This is the ground from your machine. Simply put that one in. Grab your ground from your thumb throttle and let that one piggyback as well. So when connecting these switches underneath, I recommend doing it one at a time. First, connect your power and follow the diagram given in your instructions. Make sure you double check the wiring diagram, because although some of the wires are same colors, they don't necessarily go to the same place on each switch. So consult your installation instructions in the part list that comes. Now that our wiring is all the way hooked up, I'm going to reattach all of the console and tack gauges. I do recommend before you bolt anything back in, to simply test them, turn the motor on and turn the key on and see if they get warmer. My thumb throttle is lightning hot. It's going to get warm faster than the thumb grips because they're heating up metal pieces and it's not as direct. But I can feel them getting warmer, and I'm really happy that I had the 2 different switches and I can turn my thumb throttle down to low, because I think it's going to stay in low position more often than not. Okay, you can't say anything, Dad's got to record. Okay, don't move. We are also going to put a heated, Lincoln, move. There are many different brands. There are a couple different brands Simply grab your air. All right, the next step is to remove this cover. Which means that you're using this power, since the next step is going to be adhering. You gotta go potty? Go potty. Power wire to feed, the power wire that I need to feed all of this coming. The four-wheeler comes with Polaris